Welcome back to my channel. Last video I did was about my favorite fiction of last year, so naturally this is my non-fiction section. Maybe my favorite section. Who knows? The thing is that in general I rate the non-fiction I read higher than the fiction I read, and I don't really know why, so if you have suggestions, please leave them in the comment section. But let's start off with Sigrid Sollund and Hersketeknikker. I've been talking about this before because the word Hersketeknikker doesn't really appear in the English language, but it's something like master suppression techniques. It's all about how can you dominate the person you're talking to, or just the person that you're in the room with. It's the way you talk, it's the way you dress, it's the way you use your hands. It's all of that. Sigrid Sollund is a Norwegian radio/TV host for this debate program, and I guess that gives her a lot of experience with people that uses these techniques. And it shows it's at times fun, but most of all, it's just a useful book to read if you're wondering why someone irritates you or why you never win debates or those kinds of things. Also, there are a lot of things that you don't really think about in general that you might do yourself or you notice that everyone else does. Yeah, like hand gestures, for example. There is a lot of, let's say, hidden signs to be aware of. Anyway, this book I enjoyed a lot and yeah, useful. The next one wasn't really all that useful, but very entertaining, and it's Let's Go So We Can Get Back by Jeff Tweedy, the front person of Wilco and Uncle Tupelo. I don't know what to call this kind of read. It didn't feel like a memoir, it felt like more like reading a letter. It was really easygoing, had a lot of humor, it was really self-aware, and a lot of jokes was about himself. So yeah, that's why I felt like it didn't feel like a memoir. That sounds and feels a bit more serious. Basically, this was one of my favorite reads of last year because it's about music and it's music with a bit of humor, so it doesn't take all that much. Then over to something that's not fun at all, and it's snakkar, heile, tida by Camara Lundestad Joof. Translates to something like I'm talking about it all the time, and this is on the list because it's really unpleasant to read. The author has experienced a lot of racism herself, and she sort of goes through episodes where she directs the text straight at you, saying stuff like, I know what you're thinking and feeling right now, you should have stood up, but you don't. And I guess the reason why it's uncomfortable to read is because she hits the nail straight on the head several times. So it's not a pleasant read, but that is what makes it good. And continuing the unpleasant, it's Storm of Steel by Ernst Jünger. I think I noticed this book in a podcast like a couple of years ago. It's about the First World War. I love the cover art for this one. I guess I really wanted to read a book about the First World War since there are so many books about the second one. It's how he himself experienced the First World War. I thought it would be worse to read, like more graphic. It's graphic enough, but I thought it would be like a step further. I just straight out liked reading it, and I read it while I was on vacation on a festival in Belgium, so I felt like it all happened at the place where I sat in my camping chair, and that was like just enhancing the experience, I guess. Let's just continue with the war, and this is The War Diaries by Astrid Lindgren. For those of you that don't know, Astrid Lindgren is a Swedish author, and she has written a bunch of children's books. And she's probably one of Scandinavia's most beloved authors. So I think that's the reason why I liked it, knowing that for her after the Second World War, there was so much happiness awaiting, I guess. Also for a Norwegian reading about the Swedish side of the war, since they were neutral during it, that was also kind of fascinating. She was quite active during the war. She read through letters going through Sweden, and that was like fascinating as well. I'm glad I read it, and also contains pictures, so I do like that. Now let's go over to something more pleasant, and it's Hyttebok fra helvete by Are Kalvø. Translates into something like The Cabin Book from Hell. It's about the author himself trying to embrace the outdoors, hiking and living outside, and it doesn't go all that well. He hates it still. Are Kalvø is a Norwegian comedian, and he describes himself as a person that likes the city and staying inside, where it's warm and cozy. I do get that part, but I love reading about him trying to embrace the outdoors because, yeah, it's just funny in the way he describes like our people. Because we do pride ourselves in being a people that love skiing and being outdoors and like never staying inside for too long. It's an easygoing read and a really, really funny one. This is coincidental, but will continue to be in the outdoors. And the next is A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. I read that one on the Kindle. It's about the author himself trying to hike the Appalachian trails. He enjoys it a lot more than Are Kalvø does, and he brings a friend. And I guess the friend is what makes this story good, because he is completely and utterly hopeless. Some of you might have seen the TV series made from this book. I have not. But the read is very funny and also educational. So I guess the reason why I rank it so high is because it's funny, but I felt like I learned a whole lot of things. Also, I started digging up like facts about people dying on the Appalachian trails late at night. That was a little bit horrifying. But at least I loved the experience of reading that book. Next on the list is To Søstre by Åsne Seierstad. Probably it's called Two Sisters if it's translated to English, or at least that's the direct translation. It's about two sisters from Norway that traveled to Syria to join ISIS, and then the father of these two tries to get them home. There has been a lot of media attention about these two, and it was a fantastic, gruesome read. So much horrible stuff is going on, but Åsne Seierstad is just building the story in she's amazing at just making it a bit, how should I say this? If they were to make a movie out of this, they would have a really good setup for doing so, I guess. Yeah, gruesome read, because who the heck goes to Syria to join ISIS? It's just hard to fathom why people would do it, and that's also a big intrigue of this, I guess. That seems like a segment of books that would intrigue me in general, just things you can't understand, and this definitely goes under that category. Then it's Min Skyld by Abid Raja. I guess the title translates to something like My Fault, a story about liberation. He's a Norwegian politician, and his family is from Pakistan. And this story is about his gruesome childhood and how he sort of struggles with the things he is taught by his family and then liberating himself from it to gain love and recognition and all the things you might want in life. In some way, I disliked him before I read this one, purely because he's the complete opposite to me when it comes to energy levels. He is really talkative, he likes to put himself out there, and yeah, he just talks a lot. But after reading this one, you sort of end up loving him. He's completely honest about his faults, he embraces his faults to an extent that I didn't think was possible. He has endured more gruesome stuff than I'll ever have to endure unless something terrifyingly gruesome happens. Also, after this came out, his sister has written a book about her childhood, which is the same amount of gruesome, and then his wife has also written a book that I haven't read yet, that came out last year, so that one is going to be read at some point. Will be interesting to see what his wife thinks of this whole thing. But do really recommend this, even though it's not translated to English, I guess. And on the back here it says that it's sold over 100,000 copies. And thinking about how few people we are in Norway, that's really impressive. Which leads me over to my favorite nonfiction from last year, because that's also about an impressive man, which is called Elton John, and the book is called Me. I was truly shocked of how good that book was. My expectations weren't that high because I thought this is just another biography about a big star, but it's all in the way that he's just brutally honest about his own flaws as well. It's all on the grander scale, so I didn't know that he bought a football club because he wanted to be successful in that area and help his club, which he did. I feel like I know a lot about his music, but after reading this, I sort of just have an impression about Elton John as this, let's call it, like a bulldog, a person that just goes after whatever he wants, and he's not afraid of offending people or just making his own choices. It's not like they're all easy choices. He just bulldozes over everything, it seems, at the same time as you think of him as a gentle, maybe not gentle person, but at least a kind person. And I just find the combination between being a bulldog / bulldozer and like a kind, caring person to be kind of unfathomable. I think my only expectation for this read was that it was going to be sad because Elton John is gay, and like growing up in the 50s, 60s, being gay must be difficult. But it's not like that at all. He didn't sort of discover that he was gay until later, so his upbringing was him being a bulldog, and that sort of helped. So, I don't know. Just read it. It will be worth it. When I finished reading the book, I saw the movie, but the book is so much better, so I'm glad I read it first. So, this was my list. These were the books that I enjoyed most in the nonfiction section. Next year, or this year I guess, maybe I'll read more nonfiction since I like it so much. So, do recommend me some nonfiction if you have suggestions, and I hope you have a terrific day.